Coming up on Network Africa, death toll from Algeria wildfires rises to 42. Workers in Guinea now required to show proof of vaccination before being given access to work. Plus, UN Refugee Agency regains access to 2 camps in Ethiopia's Tigray region, hosting Eritrean refugees. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shubowale. The death toll from the wildfires in Algeria has risen to 42 as more than 100 infernos burn through the country. The most intense have taken hold in forested mountains of Kabylie region, where 25 soldiers have been killed fighting fires. Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has sent his condolences to the victims' families, saying the troops had rescued more than 100 people from the flames. In the meantime, the Interior Ministry suspects arsonists are behind the fires. Experts say wildfires in several Mediterranean countries may worsen as a forecast heat wave traps desert air over the region. Joining us now is Edward Yeranayan, VOA's correspondent in Cairo, for more on this. Ed, it's been a sharp increase of the death toll from 4 to at least 42, including soldiers. Just bring us up to speed on the situation at this time.
Yes, Tenny, the Algerian media is actually saying that the death toll is now 65 and that 28 soldiers were killed trying to put out the blazes and saving residents who were trapped in their homes. They are also insisting that many of these fires were set by arsonists, and they've been giving good reasons why they believe that, whereas a lot of the Western media outlets have been just blaming wildfires and heat and global warming, which seems to be beside the point, to be honest with you. But I'm making this point because it seems like a bit of a disconnect between what the Western media is saying and what the Algerian media is saying.
So you're saying that the death toll has actually risen to 65 now in just a short period of time. We understand the Interior Ministry suspects arsonists are behind the fires, like you mentioned, but how far have they gone in their investigation?
Well, one of the key points that they're mentioning is that 3 arsonists were captured during the last several months setting fires during previous situations like this, although they weren't this bad. And the Algerian TV is urging residents to be vigilant. They were saying this in French. It was a French network that was saying this, and keep their eyes open for people setting fires. And some of the Islamists on Twitter have been accusing the government of having a few water cannons to fight people in the streets, whereas they don't have enough fire equipment. And, it seems like that would be a ridiculous claim to make. And the Islamists are making that claim. A lot of fingers are being pointed at them for possibly being behind these fires, although I haven't heard anyone specifically say that they've caught any Islamists doing this.
But Ed, experts do say the wildfires in the Mediterranean are forecast to worsen as heat wave traps desert air over the region. What plans have been put in place by the government to help the victims of these wildfires?
Well, the Algerian Prime Minister and the Interior Minister have said that they were contacting regional countries to see if they have firefighting equipment that they can lend, I guess planes and whatever they use to douse the flames. I'm not sure whether that's going to be possible given the number of fires that are burning in a lot of countries, and many of the fires are burning in places like Syria and Lebanon in Greece and Turkey, and I believe some were actually reported in some of the other regional countries, but on a smaller level. But this is also coupled with a lot of military activity in these areas, and it's not clear who is fighting whom and who might have an interest in setting fires. So it's interesting that nobody is mentioning the possibility of arson in some of these other countries, whereas the Algerians are mentioning it.
All right, then, Ed, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed.
My pleasure, Tenny.
Well, some updates on the COVID-19 pandemic now. And in West Africa, all civil servants in Guinea will now be required to prove that they've been vaccinated against COVID-19 before they're allowed to access their workstations. The new directive follows a special cabinet meeting on Tuesday, where President Alpha Condé directed the Prime Minister to ensure that ministers and all government staff obtain a health certificate to allow them to work. He also instructed government officers to take vigorous steps and act to protect the public from the risk of infection, demanding that people entering Guinea from countries affected by the Delta variant must be vaccinated, as is the practice everywhere. He also announced the strict enforcement of preventive measures to limit the virus from spreading among citizens. And over in South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa says he tried to resist corruption as the ex-president Jacob Zuma's deputy. He was speaking before the country's long-running corruption inquiry. Mr. Ramaphosa was a deputy leader of the governing African National Congress ANC party at the time. He was called to answer questions on what the party knew, if anything, about the alleged misconduct and if they did anything to try to stop it. The inquiry was set up to investigate allegations that his predecessor Jacob Zuma, during his term in office, allowed the wealthy Gupta family to plunder state resources and to influence policy and cabinet appointments.
First option for me was to resign. The second would have been to speak out. And the third would have been to acquiesce and abet and just go along. And the fourth would have been to keep quiet and remain silent. And the fifth option would have been to remain, but to resist, hoping that we can turn things around. Ordinary people abhor corruption, and they've not always seen the ANC as taking action against those in its own ranks who have been involved in corrupt acts. But now the game has changed. The line has been drawn in the sand, and the ANC is saying that we are renewing many of the incidents of corruption that would in time be described as state capture, became known to me as they did to the general public through the work of journalists, civil society organizations, and institutions such as the Public Protector and the Auditor General. Reports of court cases and disciplinary proceedings, together with the commendable work of investigative journalists and whistleblowers, did help to give insight into corruption in both government and in the private sector.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Consul General in South Africa, Abdul Malik Ahmed, has made another appeal to the Nigerian government for financial assistance to businesses affected by the recent civil unrest in South Africa. His appeal comes after doing a walkabout in downtown Johannesburg, where he met several business owners who claimed they lost goods and property worth millions of rand. Several Nigerian businesses in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and some parts of of Mpumalanga, including motor spare shops, clinics, salons and small grocery stores, lost stock during the looting.
At the moment, plans are underway to see what help can be rendered to these Nigerians. You know, they spread across KZN and Gauteng. You know, and in all, they have lost so much. In this particular shop alone has lost over close to 10 million rands. Elsewhere in KZN, you know, the statistics of loss we have indicates that about 6 to 7 million rand of property was also damaged and destroyed. We have compiled this and we have sent it to Abuja seeking for possible assistance, because as it were, most of these people can hardly feed now. They have lost everything. They have lost everything. You know, they can't even look after their family, let alone begin to contemplate to start afresh. You know, some of them are lucky, they are beginning to start again, while others are completely in a dire situation. We have made this plea to our government, and we're hoping that in due course something will be done, no matter how little, to help them in one way or the other.
And away from South Africa, the UN Refugee Agency says it has regained access to 2 camps in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, hosting Eritrean refugees. Aid has now reached Mai-Aini and Adi Arush camps, hosting about 23,000 refugees. But the UN warns that conditions in the camp are still critical. The UNHCR notes that it only had limited access to the 2 camps due to the fluid security situation. It says health care was unavailable and clean drinking water is also running out. It's not now calling for help to safely transfer the refugees to new facilities in near Dabat town, and is also appealing for more than $164.5 million to assist about 750,000 people in Tigray and some 120,000 Ethiopian refugees in Sudan.
UNHCR. They've regained access to the Mai-Aini and Adi Harush camps that house Eritrean refugees in Tigray province. Violent clashes in the area had prevented UNHCR staff from reaching the camp since July 13th. The UN Refugee Agency adds that the delivery of urgently needed assistance restarted on August 5th for the 23,000 refugees that are in both camps. However, access remains limited due to security situation, and refugees continue to face dire conditions. Basic services such as health care remain unavailable, and clean drinking water is running out. UNHCR is calling for safe passage, which will allow refugees from Miami and Adi Harush to be moved to a new site of Alemwach near Dabat, which is about 135 kilometers away.
And our 2 army officers in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been sentenced to life in prison by a military court in North Kivu province for fighting at Goma airport. Viral videos spread over the weekend showing both soldiers, a major and a captain, insulting each other and throwing punches. Local media reports the court found both guilty of assault and battery and for violating a state of siege in the province. The 2 officers have now 5 days to appeal. North Kivu and Ituri provinces have been under military control since May as the government fights militia groups in the region. And now an investigation by the BBC has found evidence that show Russian mercenaries have been operating in support of anti-government forces in Libya in defiance of a UN ceasefire agreement. Data from a tablet computer left by a Russian fighter indicates members of the Wagner mercenary organization murdered civilians and subjected others to forced labor, actions which may amount to war crimes. The findings were supported by interviews with Libyans caught up in the conflict. Speaking to the BBC on condition of anonymity, one former Wagner employee said that there were no clear rules and no documents regulating relations with the local population. The service records of Wagner mercenaries also highlight the group's involvement in other conflicts, including Syria and Ukraine. Still to come on the program. Egypt's Messi lookalike, heavy-hearted, as soccer legend leaves Barcelona for Paris Saint-Germain. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Zambia's Electoral Commission says all systems are in place to ensure free, transparent and fair polls on Thursday. This follows allegations by opposition parties that the Commission hasn't followed procedures to subject the voters' roll to an independent audit. The chairperson of the Commission, Patrick Shindano, said the electoral body would not maneuver election results because there's been concerns over the fairness of the elections. The vote is expected to be a close contest between the incumbent President Edgar Lungu and Hakainde Hichilema from the United Party for National Development. 14 other candidates are also vying for the top spot. Joining us now is Alexander Musoko Twane, a Zambian journalist, for more on the preparations towards the election. Thank you so much for your time. Just a few hours to go. What's the mood in the country as citizens prepare to head to the polls?
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. And I should say blessed afternoon to the people of Nigeria. We have about less than 45 minutes before the Electoral Commission of Zambia announces the official closure of the election campaign period that ends Zambian time 18 hours. So we are seeing at the moment from different parts of the Lusaka city rather, and other parts of the country, the politicians, political parties making sure that they make their final touches to position themselves for a probable positive election result after the vote day tomorrow. So the mood is all election, social media pages, different platforms around the city, radio stations, TV stations. It's just a countdown as we open our polls at 06 hours this morning. So the mood is electoral.
You know, Alexander, this was quite an unusual election period. You know, candidates were not allowed to hold huge campaign rallies. They had to hold door-to-door campaigns. You know, the Electoral Commission also says all systems are now in place to ensure free and transparent polls. But how confident are people, especially when we've had, you know, some history of violence in the country ahead of these polls?
All right. Well, the issue of whether the elections will be free and fair has been the topic of matter from the time, let me just say, when the election period of 2016 did close and the new government, the current government, that is, were ushered into office. 4 or 5 years later, that topic is back, whether the elections will be free and fair. But the opposition political parties have something to say, to hint a voice on unfairness. Just in the run-up to the elections tomorrow, we saw some of the political parties having difficulty in reaching out to their electorate or a number of Zambians due to a number of restrictions that were imposed by the Electoral Commission of Zambia, the Zambia Police and the Ministry of Health. This is because of the global pandemic of COVID-19. So they had to use other alternative campaign strategies such as road shows, radio and TV, and social media. But that didn't work so well. Others did manage to continued using the traditional way of road shows and a few rallies which were classified illegal. But the opposition, UPND, they're one of the two front runners in tomorrow's election, also had something to say, because in the last few days, the main opposition leader hasn't had chance to campaign in Copperbelt province. That is the mining province of Zambia, the second most important province in this country, housing a number of miners, and it is an economic hub of the country. So he hasn't had a chance to campaign in that period. The reason being given, which has been described quite funny by some stakeholders, because the current head of state has been in that province for days. So he would come back to Lusaka, travel back. So whenever the opposition leader tries to seek permit to go into that province, they will say you can't travel to this area because the head of state is in this province. So that has been quite the hurdle that we've experienced. The other experience that has been witnessed from the opposition is the issue of flying permits, which they say has been denied by the Civil Aviation Authority. That's the country's regulator of the civil aviation in this country. So there's been talk whether that amounts to the lead up to the elections to be classified as free and fair. We've had a number of stakeholders, the American government, saying that please, Zambia, ensure that you conduct your election in a very, very peaceful manner and may people's will prevail. So the former head of state, Mr. Rupia Banda, did issue a statement yesterday also saying the same number of stakeholders have been hinting on the country to have free and fair elections. So whether whether they will be free and fair, we wait for the poll result and the analysis of what has happened, what has led to that.
Yes, certainly, Alexander. You know, a lot for us to keep our eyes on. But just briefly, before I let you go, talk us through the contenders in this election and what each of them have promised to do for Zambia if elected.
All right. Well, I wish I could go into name by name and list, but the bigger major, I mean, we have 16 candidates in this election, presidential election, that is, and a number of presidential candidates have each own story to sell to the Zambian people why they feel should be given the mantle of the head of state for the next 5 years, starting 72 hours after the election is conducted. That's according to the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Each candidate has given their story, but everything primarily falls on one failure from what they've witnessed from the current government. That is the failure to unite this country. We talk of the degeneration of the standard of economy in this country. The cost of living has been the matter of campaign for the last few days in building up to the elections. But one classical one few unique messages is that of Enoch Roosevelt Tonga, a little-known political party leader whose campaign message is rather unique and who has said that he's going to ensure that every foreigner that is in Zambia is going to be just. No foreigners will be allowed to be Zambians, to be in Zambia the moment he is announced as president of this country. The other candidate, that's Steve Nyirenda, the leader of a National Restoration Party, NAREP, has another unique message. He's saying that at the moment he is elected as president, he will ensure that the power of the economic movement in this country is held by the Zambians. We have a number of leaders that are also sharing different stories of why they should be considered as the country's number one. We have the only socialist party, that's the Socialist Party in Zambia, Dr. Fred Membe, the former Post newspaper's chief executive officer, who has now left the media circles following the closure of the Post, one of the country's biggest media organizations in this country, closed under this government, is now one of the front runners for this election. He's brought the socialism approach. We have Hakainde Hichilema, the UPND leader, another front runner in the elections. He's saying that he's going to bring unity, the matter of tribalism. So everything is streamlined into unity, economic emancipation, and regional relevance for this country. So it's a backlog of promises, but I'm sure Zambians have had a chance to analyze each and every political party.
Certainly, Alexander. A lot of promises and, of course, a huge day for Zambians ahead for tomorrow. Thank you so much, Alexander, for bringing us up to speed.
All right, I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And finally, on the program, as soccer legend Messi has left Barcelona, his Egyptian lookalike joins millions of heavy-hearted fans to say goodbye. Messi's Egyptian lookalike, 27-year-old Islam Bata, reflects on the sad moment of his exit and his entry to his new club, PSG.
27-year-old painter from the humble town of Zagazig in Egypt's Sharqiya Governorate, Bata, says that Barcelona will experience a great loss as the international star changes course.
I was hoping that Messi would have stayed at Barcelona, Barcelona is Messi. And since Messi left Barcelona and Barcelona gave Messi up, Barcelona really lost. They lost Messi's skills on the soccer field. They really lost a lot.
Messi bade an emotional farewell to Barcelona on Sunday in a tearful press conference after the club were unable to finalize a new contract after his previous deal expired on June 30th.
If I was Messi, the club that I would have preferred to play for is the club that appreciates its players and would have appreciated me. The club that I would see myself in is PSG, and PSG signed with Messi, I think.
Bata's friend says the Spanish club Barcelona have lost a legend.
Barcelona definitely lost a lot because Messi is a legend, and historically it is difficult to find someone like him again. He is a Ballon d'Or winner and won it 6 times. His main competitor is Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo is somewhere, and Messi is on a whole other level. It is hard for Barcelona to find someone like Messi in the coming period. And even after a long period of time, Messi's leaving will have a huge impact on Barcelona. Barcelona will really be affected by Messi. He achieved so much at Barcelona. Most of Barcelona's achievements are by Messi right now.
In spite of his disappointment, Bata says if he were the real Messi, he will join PSG, a club that Bata says appreciates its players.
Well, there you go. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shibowale. Bye for now.